Gentlemen, it's me again. For this part of it, you don't have to actually dig into your wallets. We're just going to talk about the Lions game on Saturday. All right, these people are just hugging there. When they're finished hugging, we'll get into it. So let's just get straight to our expert panel here. We'll go to Sir Brian. What do you think is going to happen on Saturday? You know, we've seen the All Blacks and the Lions go head-to-head. We came out on top with a big scoreline, but it's probably a little bit closer than that scoreline. I'm just going to keep talking till everyone keeps quiet, because when you talk, there should be silence. What do you think is going to happen on Saturday?
I think it's going to rain.
Right, great.
I think both teams will improve a little bit. I think the Lions will definitely improve, and they'll, I think, come at us a bit more up front. But the All Blacks will improve as well, in my opinion. And so I see the All Blacks by a few, not a lot, a few.
What did you think of the Lions' performance in that first test? Did they surprise you the way they played, that they threw the ball around a bit?
Yeah, they surprised me a little bit, and I think they had some opportunities where they could have scored at least twice, and if it had been us and we'd missed those 2 tries, I think New Zealand would be quite angry about that. So right at the beginning and then later on, they could have scored, and that would have made it a very interesting contest. But I thought the All Black tactics in that first test were superb. They just they stopped the Lions, rushing defence, played them out of the game really. But we were vulnerable on 2 or 3 occasions. I'm sure they will fix that up.
Chris, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow, looking at the forward battle?
Forward battle, I think it will be quite similar to the first test. All Blacks will smash the scrum, Lions will probably dominate line out, and we'll probably do them in the loose, hopefully. So we'll continue bashing through that middle point and getting some good go forward and offloads, and it'll be good.
Now, Matt, you're sitting up there looking blankly going, shit, don't ask me. But, you know, from a perspective of a fan, what are you hoping to see tomorrow?
Oh, of course, as a fan, an All Blacks win. But as a rugby expert, I'd like to see the All Blacks use that inside channel a little bit more and maybe switch up the direction of play.
Yeah. Much better as a fan. Bunsey, right, we've had the forward view. Now that we'll have the really outside weird view from Joe. What do you think? You know, they've changed their midfield, the Lions. They've brought really basically 2 first fives and a first 5 and the second 5. Do you think they're just going to kick the shit out of the ball, or are they going to try and run it?
No, I think they opened up a lot last week, and they had opportunities. They created a lot of opportunities that they didn't finish off. And the midfield, the guy that's there now, Farrell, hopefully he'll be able to move the ball a wee bit more. Teo was just a little bit one-dimensional, took the ball up, tucked it and ran straight, and that was great and made some breaks, but he didn't actually open up any opportunities that they could have had. One glaring one in the second half where they should have scored a try. All he needed to do was move the ball once, and that was it. But I think they're attacking. I think it's the only way to beat the All Blacks. You've got to attack them with the ball. Clearly, they showed last week that they can break and breach the defence, and so if they continue along that vein, but make sure that they take the opportunities when they arrive, then it could be a good contest.
Frank, the All Blacks countered the quick line defence of the Lions by using those inside channels. What do you think the All Blacks will do this test? Do you think they'll go back to that plan, or they'll expect the Lions to counter that so they'll go wide?
I'd say they'll have both of those areas covered. I mean, you have to, something that was successful for you last week, I guess you'd have to go back to again until it doesn't work. But I'm sure that they're smart enough, and it's been shown with Hansen and his coaching group that they're smart enough to to review and to adapt and change quickly. So I'm pretty sure that they'll have a plan B as well.
When you were playing, did you have a plan B?
Didn't need one.
Buck, what about you? What are you expecting to see? You know, we've talked about the Lions. What are you expecting to see from the All Blacks? And particularly, just a little comment on the game of Kieran Reid, who came in and played one of the great number 8 games on Saturday.
Well, firstly, I'd say Kieran, as the captain, had a great knock last weekend after being out for a few weeks with his broken thumb. And I thought he was absolutely superb, and he'll do that again this week, I believe. He'll have another big game, and he needs to have another big game. But in regards to the game tomorrow, I think that it's going to be very dependent on the weather tomorrow. If the weather comes in and that Wellington gnarly wind comes from the south and we get a lot of rain with it, I think we're going to see a lot of kicking in the game from both sides. We know that the All Blacks will always try and play as wide as they can, but the weather might be against them. But if they do carry on putting the ball wide, I reckon they will open them up later on in the game, but not early in the game. It's going to be a tough one, but I think that we have got the ability to change our game, go from a wide game to a tight game whenever we want, whereas they don't tend to be able to play wide a lot, and they don't do it in England, and so I think that they'll just play a kicking game tomorrow and try and force, especially with the weather, they'll force the ball, put the ball behind us, and basically try and force us into mistakes, and I think that's just the way the British play, and that's what I'm expecting tomorrow. But the All Blacks I have to pick them tomorrow. I reckon 15 to 20 point win myself.
So, Case, there was a lot of talk about how the Lions were going to beat us up at scrum time and dominate our tight 5. It didn't happen in the first test.
Hasn't happened in some of the Super Rugby games either, mate. So.
Yeah. What have you thought of the Lions scrum? Because it was really well talked up before they got here.
Yeah, well, mate, it's that bravado that comes out of the northern hemisphere. They think that's their style of game and that's their strength. That's what they're good at. But they don't realise that the All Blacks have caught up and we're surpassed them in that area. Trying to attack us out of our game, you better be on your game every second and of the scrum. You can't just have a good hit and then relax, because we'll scrum for 30 seconds and we'll dominate you if you give us a sniff. And we've seen it already, and I'm expecting a bit more. I think we've got a lot more mental toughness in our forwards than they do. I believe that bringing 4 unions into one umbrella, you don't have that same consistency there, mate. So I think we'll dominate them again, mate, up front.
So we're going to dominate them up front, and we're going to beat them out wide. So, Andy, do you think, you've been in test matches where the All Blacks have come off a loss, so this time it's the Lions' team, they're going to be hurting. Are they good enough is emotion enough for them to improve? Anger, disappointment?
I was at a function, I remember being at a function with a woman Prime Minister of New Zealand, and she said, "Can everybody hear?" And I said down the back, "Yes, I can, but I'm prepared to swap places with someone who can't." And at the same function, Phil Gifford, your very close mate, said to me, "You're a fucking traitor." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, you're backing the Aussies to beat us." And my prediction was the Aussies would kick a goal in the last couple of minutes and win it. John Eales kicked the goal. I think the Lions might get up tomorrow.
Yes, I think they will get up in the morning and then they'll go to the game and then they'll lose. So, Kirky, I know it's really hard to sort of keep focused because even the guys up here can't keep focused. The noisiest people on the table are actually up here. But, Kirky, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
What I think and what might happen might be a little bit different. But, you have gut feelings about before test matches, and in Auckland, with the way the Lions played in the last couple of games, I wasn't sure. I thought All Blacks might be short of a run. Lions playing pretty well. Watch out. And my gut feeling is this time they will bloody walk all over them. I don't care about the score. I don't make scores. All I wish, and I sort of hesitate to say this publicly, and it won't happen because of the weather. But
for number one, I wish the bloody referees would get those bloody Lions on side. Because clearly in Auckland, down our 22 that I was sitting on in the main stand on the side, on the end that Awani scored his 2 tries, clearly their line of defence was offside by at least half a metre. And that just makes that huge difference of whether Aaron Smith and the boys out further can operate. And I wish that we could bloody thump the arse off them and they can go back and show them this is how you play rugby.
And I think we'll get the last word tonight to Sir Brian. Sir Brian, just remind us about what a Lions tour means to New Zealand. We don't have them that often. You've played in a few. What does it mean for an All Black to play against the Lions?
I think it's a lot bigger than a lot of people believe. The reason that New Zealand were anticipating this tour with excitement was for the first time for some time, this is going to be a real challenge, and it's not ended yet. We've only had 1 test, we've got 2 to go. We are playing the best of the 4 nations, the best of Europe minus France, and that's a hell of a challenge, and it always has been a hell of a challenge. We have had a great deal of success against the Lions, but it's a wonderful tour to play in, and I think what makes it, when I happened to go to Hamilton and half of the seats were taken up by Lions supporters. In the test on Saturday, probably a quarter of the seats were taken up by Lions supporters. And at the Hurricanes, probably a third were taken up by Lions supporters. That's incredible. They have also, not only the players, but the spectators and the followers have contributed a hell of a lot to this tour, and they will continue to do so. When we're in the ground, New Zealanders don't make a lot of noise, but the Lions do, and it makes us cheer as well. So that the games that I've watched, the atmospheres have been fantastic. All those Lions supporters who have come along today, welcome. Welcome to New Zealand. Have a great time.
So I think on those beautiful words by New Zealand's President, Sir Brian Lahore, we'll just have a round of applause for these rugby legends on stage. And I'd like now to invite Ian Kleinack up to wrap up proceedings. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kindness and listening. Sometimes. Nice.